Perfect. So I'll share my screen and we'll get started. You can see my screen, right? Can someone confirm my screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'll give you a quick recap of what we have done previously and then we'll get started further. Uh, so since all of you have done two programs in iGraph, you will be familiar with it by now. So these were the few commands we saw in our previous lecture. We saw how do you create a graph and then declare whether it's directed or undirected. Then you can see a summary of your graph or you can print it. So here this letter D means that it's a directed graph. This one over here is the number of your nodes and this one is the number of edges. Let me just keep executing these blocks one by one. Then g dot add vertices is going to add 5 vertices to your graph labeled as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We use this to assign attributes to your nodes. So this one assigns an attribute named fname to your nodes. So 0th node has fname Ritu, first node has fname Aman, so on and so forth. You can use this command here to view these names. If you want to see the attribute value for a particular vertex, you type the vertex index here and then followed by your attribute name, fname here. If you need to select vertices based on some attribute value, so we use the select function over here. So on this object vertex sequence, you call the select function and give the attribute and its value which you are searching. This function over here is going to return you a vertex sequence object again. So if you see this, it has given you a vertex sequence object here. If you want to see which all are the vertices in this object, then you can use this iterator over here, v dot index for v in this sequence. So as of now, it will return you a list of indices. So as of now, there is only one vertex with this name, which is true. Similarly, how you can add vertices? Similarly, you can delete vertices. In this again, you can pass certain vertex indices and it will delete those vertices for you. So if you are confused anywhere, please stop me and ask. Uh, Here again, we have added 5 more vertices to the graph. So total I have 9 vertices now. We have again defined the f name for all these 9 vertices. Then we are adding edges here. So we have added 7 edges here. Similar to the vertices, edges also have an index in iGraph. So I can, and similar to vertex sequence object, I have an edge sequence object. So you can also see the indices of all these edges over here. Then we saw how we can visualize this graph using all these parameters over here. So we can have a vertex underscore label, whatever label you want, size of the box, margins, vertex size, edge width, whether you want straight edges or curved edges, vertex color, its label distance, frame color, frame width, so on and so forth. This we have done, and then we have seen that how do we color these vertices and edges based on particular criteria. So the first criterion we used was the gender of these vertices. So we had a new attribute here, gender, gave it certain values, and then we defined an attribute called color, which is based on this gender. So if the gender is female, this attribute has a value pink, otherwise it has a value blue. Similar with the edges. So we gave each of the edges a type. So whether it's a friendship tie or an enemyship tie, and again based on that, friendship tie is colored green and enemyship is colored as red. And we got this graph over here. And then we have seen that how you can save such a graph. So by now we have seen that how we can create these simple graphs, color them, visualize them. So now from now we will go one step further. So before that, something which I'm not going to cover here is the functionalities which you use in your typical graph theory course. So in graph theory course, you deal with all these things, vertex coloring, or the distance between two vertices, shortest path between two vertices, figuring out what is a spanning tree or how many minimum spanning trees graph has, which are the cut vertices, which are the cut edges, whether two graphs are isomorphic or not. So iGraph has functions for all of these. So make sure you explore all of these functions. You might require them for some of your projects. We have inbuilt functions for all of these. If you get stuck somewhere, I'll help you out. So right now we are not covering these graph theory related functions. We are going one step ahead, and today we are going to talk about how do you load and store these graphs in your system. So let's say I'm working on a Facebook graph having 4,000 nodes and many thousands of edges. So it is difficult for me to every time create that graph. So once I create a graph, I should be able to store it on my system and load it from there the next time onwards, instead of again and again creating the same graph. Before doing that, let's look at some of the graph generators. So whether you use iGraph in R, iGraph in Python, or NetworkX in Python, you have certain functions for some typical graphs we use. Some typical graphs we use are star graphs, complete graphs, or a complete bipartite graph, or a cycle graph, a path graph. So for such kinds of simple and organized graphs, we have some inbuilt generators. So take a look at this. I'm going to copy it in the chat window, and I'm also going to show it here on my screen. This is the link where you can see various graph generators. Let me just open it. So you can see here. So we have two kinds of graph generators. One are the deterministic and other are the randomized graph generators. We'll talk about randomized graph generators in the later part of the course. So right now I'm going to show you a few deterministic graph generators. The difference between both of these is a deterministic graph generator is going to generate the same graph every time. So for example, if I say generate a complete graph on 5 vertices, so it's always going to be the same graph. On the other hand, we have some other kind of graphs which when you generate every time, they depend on some random function and you get a different graph every time. So we'll talk about that later. So I'm going to talk about a few deterministic graph generators as of now. So you can see some graph generators here. You can explore these. I'm going to show few of these here to you. Let's start with the first one here. So this one helps you generate a tree. So look at the parameters here. So we have 127 vertices, and what is this 2? So this is the graph which is generated by this graph.tree 127,2. It is very similar to the exercise which we have done in the previous class. The only difference is every node here has a degree of 3 except for the central vertex here. The central vertex has a degree 2. Other than that, every vertex has a degree 3. So it is quite similar to the graph which we had generated. Then if you want to create a complete graph, you can use this function ig.graph.full. So it will generate a complete graph on 10 vertices as you see it here. Then you can create a ring graph, which is nothing but a cycle graph. And so you have a large number of functions like this. And you can also generate some of the famous graphs like Peterson graph or Robertson graph. So you might have studied about them in your graph theory course. Peterson graph is a very well-known graph which is used to study theoretical properties on your graphs. You can generate a Peterson graph over here. This is how Peterson graphs look like. And you can also pass some other famous graphs here. So let me pass this one over here. These are named after the names of some scientists. This is a Robertson graph. So these are the few implicit graph generators we have, which might come in handy for some purpose. But most of the times in this course, we are going to use the random graph generators, which we'll talk about in next few lectures. So sometimes as a baseline, you can keep these deterministic graphs at hand, and later on you can add a few edges to them based on certain algorithms. Okay. Let's now start exploring some of the real world networks. But again, before that, let's look at some graph representations. So do you remember the graph representations, what are the ways we store these graphs in our memory? Shagufta just studied this in discrete mathematics course. So other than Shagufta, would anyone else want to answer it? You can also type in the chat box. So what are the different graph representations we use? So here we are visualizing the graph, right? So how do you store these graphs in computer memory? Feel free to search online. Maybe it will brush up your memory and then try to tell me the answer. I'm giving you some time here.
Ma'am, matrix in the form of
Okay.
the matrix and everything.
So one is the adjacency matrix.
Yes,
Perfect.
ma'am.
Uh, okay, so we have an adjacency matrix. If we have n vertices, we have a n cross n matrix. So assuming that it's an undirected, unweighted graph, every value will be either 0 or 1. 1 if there is an edge, 0 if there is no edge, and all the diagonal entries will be 0 here in case it is a simple graph. Okay, then we have Satvik says adjacency list representation. What is that? So what do we do in adjacency list? Okay, before that, what are the disadvantages of having this adjacency matrix?
We can't use them for the directed graph, ma'am.
Is it? We
Uh,
can't use them for directed graphs?
yes, ma'am, I think so. And the single thing is the computation, ma'am. Computation time, how much time and space will be taken for them to compute and everything.
Okay. So computation time. Harshit says computation time. Any other answer? So you can actually represent both directed as well as undirected graphs using adjacency matrix. The only difference will be for undirected graphs, it will be symmetric. So if you have an edge from 1 to 2, you'll always have an edge from 2 to 1 because it is undirected. In the case of directed, you can again build an adjacency matrix, just that it will not be a symmetric matrix. The disadvantage is, as you said, computation time. So assume that I have a graph over, let's say, 1,000,000 nodes, and there are a very few edges in this graph. Let's say a few hundred or 200 edges. So what will happen in this adjacency matrix? It will be a million cross million matrix in which there will be millions of zeros and there will be only a few 200 or 100 ones somewhere in between. So it is wasting a whole lot of space. So that's why we come to the other representations, one of which is the adjacency list. So what do we do in adjacency list? Anyone?
We basically for every node that we have, we link it to if it forms an edge with a different node, we have that sort of like, suppose the edge node 0 has an edge with node 1, so besides 0 you have 1, and if it forms an edge with 2 or 3, then you'll have to write 2 or 3 beside it.
Perfect. So every node is connected to a linked list, and this linked list stores the adjacent vertices of this particular node. Do you know of some other representations? So we have two representations left. So one is something which is called the incidence matrix representation. Incidence matrix representation, and other one is the edge list representation. So I'm going to talk mostly about adjacency list and edge list representation. So edge list representation uses all the more less space. What edge list representation does is, it simply looks at your adjacency matrix, looks at the rows and columns which are 1 and stores their row and column number. Or in other words, it just stores the endpoints of every edge. So I'll show you an example. So edge list simply means listing the edges. So in this representation, your every line will have 2 entries, your first vertex and second vertex. So every edge will come in each line. So it uses all the more lesser space. So what we can do is actually we can store all these graphs in any of these representations. So let's look at a few here. Let's talk about the first one here, adjacency matrix representation. So I'm going to use that same graph which we built above, this one over here, right? So my small g is this graph here. I'm going to print its adjacency matrix representation. So the function here is g dot get adjacency, gives me the adjacency matrix for this graph. I'm going to comment all the remaining things here. And let's execute it. Yes, so you see this here. So this is the adjacency matrix representation of this graph. And again, you can see here, although it is a small graph, still there are a very large number of zeros as compared to 1. So we call such adjacency matrices or such graphs as sparse graphs or sparse matrix, which have a large number of zeros. And this mostly happens with all of your real world networks, be it a Facebook graph or a Twitter graph, you'll always end up seeing a large number of zeros. There are only a few edges in these networks. Most of the people are not connected to each other. Okay, so what you can do is assume that I created this graph here and I want to store it on my system so that I can use it in future. You can also write this adjacency matrix in a file here. So I'm going to write here this adjacency matrix in this file called am.csv. So am stands for adjacency matrix here. Let me just go to my system and see whether it is stored or not. So here you see a file which is named am, and let's open it with Notepad. So here you can see that I got the adjacency matrix for this graph. So next time I have to load this graph, I can load it using this command here, g equals to graph.read adjacency. So now I'm going to read this graph from this matrix and let's plot it. So here you see this graph. This time I have read it from a file. So this was about adjacency matrix, and then coming to the second representation is the adjacency list representation. So again a similar kind of a function here, g dot get adj list, and execute it. So this is your adjacency list. So your 0th vertex is adjacent to first vertex is adjacent to 8th vertex, this is for the second vertex, third vertex, fourth vertex, 5th vertex is not adjacent to anything, 6th vertex is adjacent to 7, so on and so forth. And again you can also write this adjacency list in a CSV file. I hope it uses, I guess it uses a different function here. So one thing here is when you are reading this adjacency list from the system, so it's very difficult in the case of iGraph. iGraph do not have a specific format. It has a format, but it doesn't have a very, what I would say, a clean format for reading from an adjacency list similar to NetworkX. So I'll show that to you in a while. This happens with both iGraph in R as well as Python here. So most of the times this function to read an adjacency list is quite easy in the case of NetworkX. So we are going to use one function for that from NetworkX. I'll come there. Okay. So what you can do is, and you can also write these graphs in the form of incidence matrix, and which was the other notation pending is the edge list. So you can write these in those formats also. I'm going to show you edge list also in a while. Can you guess what is the problem with writing these graphs in these formats we have? So we have 4 formats: adjacency matrix, adjacency list, incidence matrix, and edge list. So we had this graph above where we had all these nodes which were having different labels, edges which were having labels and different colors. So what is the problem if we use any of these formats to write this graph? So the problem there is all of these formats, they only take care of the edges or which nodes are connected to which other nodes. It is difficult to store the attributes which are associated with your nodes and edges. So above what we have done, we have given certain names to those nodes, certain names to the edges. We have defined certain colors for nodes and edges. So either one way is to write them separately in a CSV file and then have a proper logic to again read back those attributes for nodes and edges from the CSV files. Rather, another way we can do is what we can do, and most of the time which is done, is to use another format which is called the GML format. So I'm going to use that here and show it to you. So you also have a write_GML function to write a graph in the GML format. So I have written this graph in the GML format here. I'm going to open this. You see this one over here is a GML format, which is many a times used for storing these graphs. So what it does is it looks something like this. So you can see here every node has got an ID. ID starts from 0. Correspondingly, attribute of every node is also stored here. So every node has had an attribute fname here. So that is also stored here. Similarly, for every edge, you have this source node, target node, followed by okay. So with edge, we were not having any particular attribute here. So this is the file which you get here. You can try it with some other graphs as well. And then you can read this graph from the read GML format and again plot it. So you can use here, you can provide here labels equals to vertex underscore label equals to g dot vs fname. And you will be able to see these labels here. So most of the times we use GML format for storing and retrieving these graphs. So there are certain more formats. Let me see if I can quickly search that and show it to you. I'll actually search that and pass it to you. Yeah, here you have those. So these are the different formats. You have the adjacency list here. So this is actually the reader method. So it's called graph.read_LGL. So this LGL has a slight problem here. So what generally happens if I want to show something in an adjacency list, so the format I would want to have my CSV file, I would want it to be something like this, the file which you see here. So most of the times I would have my adjacency list in this format. So what I'm saying is node 1 here is adjacent to nodes 4, 5, 6. Node 2 is adjacent to nodes 3, 4, 6, so on and so forth. So this is how my adjacency list should look like. But what LGL format demands from you is a different thing. So LGL format is, you can actually open it and see its format actually varies. So it says that you should have a hash and then this vertex name here. This one over here. So hash means I'm going to define the adjacency list for this particular vertex, followed by which vertex it is adjacent to. If it is adjacent to one more vertex, then you should hit an enter here and type that name. Now hash vertex 2 name here means that I'm going to tell the adjacency list for vertex 2, so on and so forth. So it becomes slightly tricky. So whenever you have your data, you need to write it in this particular format if you want to use this LGL format here. How do I shift this? Okay. Then we have our adjacency matrix format, few other formats here which you can search. We are soon going to look at this one. So most of the times you find your data, online data sets in either the GML format or this edge list format. And many times you can find your graphs in this pickle format or these other things over here. So you can explore these on your own. So I'll just go down. So we have discussed about this GML format here. What I'm going to do now is let's look at a few network data sets which are present online and then try to crunch them. So you'll be using them in few of your projects. So the first one over here is this one. So rather what you can do is just type network datasets on Google and you will get here a number of websites. So let's explore a few ones here. This is the first one from where I've also given you the links to those 93 projects. So these are the few networks which are present here. So the first one are the social networks. So you have data for Facebook, Google plus Twitter. So for every network, you can see here description, how many nodes it has, how many edges it has, and certain other attributes. So the Facebook graph is undirected. It will definitely be undirected because of the friendship connections. If you look at Google plus or Twitter, those are directed networks. So in Twitter, you have who follows whom. So the network becomes directed. Then you will find some networks which will be signed. So signed networks are those in which every edge has a sign, plus or minus. For example, in the network we made, we have two kinds of edges. So one were the friend edges and other were the enemy edges. So instead of defining them as friend and enemy, we can make them signed. So friend links will be plus and the enemyship links will be minus. Then you can have temporal networks. In the case of temporal networks, you'll be given the snapshots of the particular network at different points in time. So it can be after a few weeks, after a few months, or after years. So you'll have a continuous data over time. Attributed networks where you have certain node attributes and edge attributes, actually very difficult to get. Then you can have weighted networks where every edge has some weight, so on and so forth. So these are the few networks we have. Then you have certain networks with ground truth communities. So as an example, LiveJournal is an online social network. So in all of these networks here, so some of these are undirected, some are directed. You have some communities. So the communities which you have here is, so each community is nothing but a connected component. So we are going to talk about communities in detail later on. Actually, we have communities for connected graphs also. So most of the times we detect the communities in a connected graph, but in these data sets, it is, so since the graph is disconnected, every connected component is counted as a community. So don't get confused. They haven't applied a community detection algorithm and then telling you the communities. It's not like that. Few other networks here. So this one over here is labeled. So I need to look into what exactly are the labels here. We have communication networks, citation networks, collaboration networks between researchers. We have web graphs, so which web page links to which other web page. So the ones which are used by Google. Product co-purchasing networks. So these are mostly used for in building of recommendation systems. So which two people buy the similar kind of products. Then internet networks, road networks. So you have all these kind of networks. So you can pick few from here based on the demand of your project. All these are the temporal networks here. So if you are looking at an evolutionary algorithm which defines how your networks change over time, you might be looking into a temporal network. This one is particularly interesting here. So meme tracker and Twitter. Most of the times extracting Twitter data is actually a challenge. So these 4 data sets here provides you a whole lot of Twitter data. This one here is particularly interesting. I've used it in one of my research. So what it gives you is a Twitter network. So Twitter network over those users who were tweeting about this Higgs boson particle. It gives you the network. So network here means which person follows which other person, and then it also gives you the data regarding which person tweeted which other person and at what time. So such kind of data set you can utilize it for information diffusion models. So I won't go into too much details of this. So these are some networks here, and then I can actually go back from here. This here is another network repository. So here they have classified it according to animal social networks, biological networks. So you can, I'm going to extract a few networks from here and going to show you how they work. So from this first one over here, let me look at this Facebook data set. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use this file over here, facebook_combine.txt. So what this file has is all the links. So which 2 people are friends with each other, and these links are provided in the edge list kind of a format. So let me actually show that to you. So once you extract this file, let me just look at its location. I've kept this file here. So this is how this file looks like once you download it. So you can see here. So this is an edge list representation. Every line here has 2 vertices. So 0th vertex is connected to first one, second one, third one, so on and so forth. So there are a whole lot edges in this graph. You can see here again this vertex 1009 is connected to the vertex 1573, so on and so forth. So we are going to create a network out of this. So we are going to use this function here, graph.read_edge_list. So you can use this function to directly read an edge list and convert it into a graph. So now since this graph is very big, it will take some time to visualize this graph. So what I have done here is I have used, I have actually executed it before. I am just going to show you the result here. So what I have done in this line is I have plotted this graph with certain attributes, vertex size 30, edge width 30, and all these colors here, vertex frame color and all those things, with different layouts. So whenever you have a real world network and you are visualizing it, you need to see which layout best suits your graph. So in this case, let's look at the result of few different layouts. So you can see, so here you can provide your layouts. For graph layouts also, you can see the algorithms which we have for layouts here. So you have all these short names for these layouts. You can have a circular layout or a distributed recursive layout, or layouts based on forced directed algorithms which try to create an aesthetically pleasing layout for your graph, so on and so forth. So I've used a few of these and stored the graph. So let's look at a few one here. So this one is when you actually don't provide it any particular layout. So I'm not sure by default which particular layout it uses. So it's actually that Facebook graph which we just imported here, over here. So you can actually type here and see what happened. I have imported this Facebook graph here. So let me just look at its summary. So you can see here, so this is the summary of this graph. It has 4,039 nodes and around 88,000 edges. Then I'm specifically uncommenting these two lines here to save this graph in different formats. This one is when you draw it in a circular layout, you don't see anything pretty much. This is another. So this is also a result of force directed algorithm, which doesn't work very good on our data set. So generally, mostly on the real world networks, the algorithms which work quite well is this one here, FR, which is Fritcherman-Ringgold algorithm. Again, a force directed algorithm, but most of the times it gives good graphs for your real world networks. So you should try and play around with all these different layouts and see which one suits you the best. So this was regarding one of the graphs. Let us take another graph over here. So it is a retweet graph. So the format is given is MTX, which is a matrix format. So look at here. So this So this one over here is a retweet network, and you will see a large number of retweet networks here. I particularly use the one which has lesser number of nodes and edges so that we can see it quickly. I'm not sure which one I used exactly. I think I might have used this one. I need to look into it. So you can download these. When you download it, it will be downloaded in an MTX format. So different websites will give you different formats. So let me just show you what this file looks like. Okay, so although it's again a MTX format, but if you look at it, it is quite similar to what to your edge list representation, just different in the sense that it has two additional lines. So the first one defines its format, second one tells you the number of rows your matrix has, number of columns your matrix has. So this means there are 96 nodes in this network, and these are the number of non-zero entries. So you have 117 non-zero entries, and after that it provides the row number and column number for each of these entries. Now if I have to extract information from such a data set, I will need to remove these initial two lines and then I'll need to process it. So there, in those cases, you might need to write a bit of a code there. So what happens is actually when you import it using this pandas library, it actually shows you that this file has I think around 5 columns. 5 columns because each of this here becomes a column. So this is your first column, this is second, third, fourth, fifth, and after that, so if I'm reading this entire file, so starting from this line onwards, you start having 3 not a number entries. So those are some things which you run into and you need to figure them out. So what I have explicitly done here is I have read this file. So I think in this case I have manually deleted the initial 2 rows. You can also write a code to do that. Then I have dropped these additional columns. So I have kept only 2 columns, 0th column and first column, and dropped all the remaining columns. After that, I named these columns as follower and followee. So one thing we need to keep in mind here, so what is happening here is this retweet network tells me that 6 actually retweeted the tweet of 1. So 1 was the person who originally shared a tweet and 6 was the person who retweeted it. So what I am going to do is, instead of having an edge from 6 to 1, I am going to keep an edge from 1 to 6. Because if you look at the direction of information flow, it is from 1 to 6. So in that sense, I slightly change both of these columns. I reindex these, I flip both of these columns and then convert all of these into tuples. So which gives me the edge list of this graph. So using these tuples, you can create this graph and then look at its edge list here. Okay, and here is a small problem with this one here. So what happens here is, I'm sorry, when I look at the edge list of this graph here, so you can see this, am I printing something else here? So when you see this edge list here, so my edge list have these edges 1 to 0, 6 to 1, 8 to 2, which actually doesn't match the entries which I have here. So can someone tell me what's going wrong? So I had this data set here. So I read this into my pandas data frame and I use that data frame to build a network in iGraph. But when I look at edge list, the edges here are not matching the edges which I have in my actual file. So think about why this is happening. It has to do with something I told previously about how iGraph functions when you create a network. It has something to do with that. So think about that. I'll stop here. We'll take it from here in the tomorrow's class. So this Friday we are not going to have a class, but you are expected to come here and discuss about projects with each other. Within yourself, decides who are going to be partners. So once you discuss on this Friday amongst yourself, on next Tuesday you can discuss it with me, and next Friday we are going to have your first presentation for the project, in which you need to tell about what is your problem statement, which are the data sets you probably will be using and stuff like that. I'll email the exact details to you. So I'm done from my side. So think about why both of these edge lists do not look the same. And if you have any doubts, you're most welcome to ask me. And if you have no doubts, you can leave the class. Also, let me know if you are finding the lectures quite slow or quite fast, and if you want me to alter my speed in some way. Okay, so Satvik and okay, Satvik, any doubt?